Duppler from Americans for Tax Reform, the group that has played a big part in shaping GOP attitudes towards tax policy. Mattie, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
You know, we've got a lot of really surprising headlines tonight, but I want to start with this idea that the fiscal cliff is something, this is what the Democrats are saying, that this is up to the president and the Democrats. They say, we're not going to give the GOP a voice. It's our way or the highway. I know the president starts every speech saying, I'll compromise, but he ends it a totally different way. How do you read this?
Well, it's interesting that you've got Democrats, leftists saying that they somehow have a mandate to hike taxes or, whatever it is they're claiming, because when you're looking at what happened, last week in the election, all that happened was the 2010 status quo was affirmed. So you still have the same president, but you also have an overwhelming majority of House Republicans who have pledged to their constituents, we are not going to raise taxes. And the voters went to the polls and reelected that majority once again. So to say that the president somehow has more of a mandate than these House Republicans do, who are all back up for election, is a little bit of a fallacy that Democrats need to admit to.
I think you make a good point there. It wasn't a landslide. He did get the majority, but he didn't get a landslide. I think that's absolutely true. Your boss, Grover Norquist, though, told me last Friday, and I want to hear what your view is on this. He said, Jerry, the president is going to cave. He said the president will extend all tax cuts for everybody for at least 2 years. Do you agree?
Well, my boss is a smart man because I do agree with him entirely.
There's a couple of things. Come on. Where does this come from?
Well, there's a couple of things, and Grover, I'm sure, mentioned this, but one is that we've been here before. In 2010, we were looking down the exact same road, and we had the exact same compromise that came out of that. And the president is the one who signed those tax cuts back into law in 2010. So he's got a hard position to be in, because back when we were having that debate, he told us that the economy couldn't handle that kind of tax hike right now. Now, in the third quarter of that year, we were growing the economy about 2.6%. This past quarter, we've grown 2%. So the economy is actually growing at a slower pace, but now apparently the president wants to tell us that it's an okay time for a tax hike. It doesn't really, it doesn't make sense to the average American who's looking at their tax bill.
You're looking for logic in politics.
That's the first fault of mine. You're right.
I think you make a good point about whether or not this is a good time to raise taxes, but here's the real problem that I see, and you tell me if you agree. We don't really have a revenue problem. I don't know if you've looked at revenues over the last several years, but they're growing. They're almost back to pre-recession levels, almost back to the boom levels. So why do we have to raise taxes?
Right. And Jerry, you hit it on the head. We don't have a revenue problem. We have an overspending problem. The deficit that we have today is caused by the fact that we are continually spending far more than we take in taxes. And you're right. The left likes to claim that we are undertaxed because we have the least number of revenues coming in than we have historically. Well, we don't have the same amount of revenues coming in as we have in the past 50 years because the economy is so bad. People aren't working. You can't tax people's income when they don't have any. So you see revenues, at 15% of GDP rather than their historical average at 18%. But you're absolutely right. We're edging back up into 18% as the economy tries to recover. What we need to be looking at is our spending problem, because if we don't get that under control, we'll never get to a point where we see revenues at their normal stage.
Let's just cut down to what the president is saying. He's saying he's going to extend tax cuts for everybody. But people earning $250,000 or more. How much would that contribute to solving our problems with the debt and deficit?
Very little. Well, the one thing, just the pure numbers of it all, he likes to talk a lot about math. Just having the top two rates expire gets you $442 billion over the next 2 years, which is a lot of money. Let's not sneeze at that. But it's nothing close to the $1.6 trillion he claims he needs, and it's nothing close to the $1.5 trillion deficits he's running every year. So if you're looking to see where the rest of that money is coming from, it's coming from the middle class. He wants to tell you he can get it all from people making over $250,000 a year. He can't. He wants to talk about math. He needs to own up to the math that is telling us, which is that the middle class is going to be the ones taking the hit as well.
Well, I got to tell you, we've got a long way to go. Everybody says they're in charge. My true belief is that nobody is. Mattie, thanks for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.